Hello, White Sox fans. It is Chrystal O'Keefe with episode 6 of the Visiting Dugout, brought to you by Southside Sox. Today on the show, I have Kevin Seamus from 93 Phillies. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, so who are you? Give us a little quick introduction if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm an all-around Philadelphia sports guy. I write about the 93 Phillies all the time. I'm obsessed with the 93 Phillies. They were my favorite team when I was 5. I work at Sixers games. I used to work for the Phillies. I worked for the Royals before. I write. I make videos. I do whatever it is that I feel like doing with sports. Love them.
Yeah, you're busy like me. It sounds like awesome.
All the time.
So, as of this recording, your Phillies are sitting at 4th in the NL East.
Yeah.
Hey, I feel you. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Where do you see them sitting kind of mid-season, kind of hopefully on the return of Bryce Harper, and then again in maybe September?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question. When's Bryce coming back? It feels like it's any day now. Is the way that they're playing it. It's wild. The good news is that the Phillies always start slow. This isn't like a new thing. It's not something I'm not used to. Even like going back to like 07, 08, 09, we all like sputtered out in April. And so there's a lot of, Philadelphia Phillies fans who are very disappointed with how the season has started. It has been a bummer for a lot of the time. As soon as the Hoskins injury happened, which is so tough. But I mean, White Sox fans know how that is.
Yeah.
Eloy, that one, like, was that 2 years ago when he got injured right before the season started? That was such a bummer. Like, it's such just a slash to the morale when one of your favorite players and one of those like good players just gets wiped out for the season. Like, it's nothing. Yeah. No, it's been a tough start this season, but Harper coming back, the midseason, everything's hopefully going to get the ship. The NL East is difficult, but we're still hopefully still going to be around in September. It's just been tough to start.
Yeah. So what are these rumors? I know we touched on Bryce Harper already, but I've heard he might be skipping rehab, or then he's going to be back by the All-Star break, or he's going to play first now. Like, do you feel like there's any validity to any of this right now?
Yes. And it's only because Bryce Harper is a maniac. And like, that's the thing. Because like at the beginning of spring training, he had this whole thing where he's like, it's definitely not going to be that long, guys. Or it's going to be a long time. We're taking it slow. I don't want to rush it. He's saying all the things he's supposed to say. He's so diplomatic. He knows exactly how to work the press. He knows exactly how to work Philadelphia Phillies fans. And so then that's when I was like, I think it's going to be quicker, and he's going to try to do the whole I'm going to come back faster than anyone's ever come back kind of thing. Because then they put him on the 10-day DL instead of 60-day DL, which is weird. Like, it's Tommy John surgery. Like, it's a big deal. He should take time. Now the question is the Moneyball question. Like, how hard is it to play first base?
Yeah, not everyone can do that. It's not the easiest position to just pick up.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. How hard is it to do it? Scott Hatteberg, never played first base, and he does it. I mean, these guys do it. Like, Schwarber hated it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing about when he was in Boston. He did not want playing first base, which is why the Phillies aren't touching it right now, which a lot of Phillies fans are like, oh, we played first base before. So, like, but can Harper do it? I don't. Yes, sure. And that definitely makes it interesting. Of course he can. He is a maniac. He doesn't make sense. So can he come back? Is he going to rush it? Probably. But it has everyone talking all the time about it. It keeps everyone invested in the Phillies, which is nice.
Yeah, and he's so much fun to watch as is, and he's 30 now, so you would think maybe he's going to slow down, but I feel like it's only ramping up. Like it's another Justin Verlander case where he's going to be 40 and winning, Gold Gloves or something.
He's a weird guy. Did you see the GQ thing where he mentions his favorite author?
I follow him quite a bit. He's so much fun.
I work at a library, and I told all the librarians there, and none of them had read that author, but we bought all the books. We're going to make a Bryce Harper display for his favorite author, L. Kennedy. It's going to be great. He's a weird guy.
Yeah, he's strange, but I think that's why I love him. I followed the Phils pretty closely when Andrew McCutchen was there because he's my favorite. He's my favorite.
He's impossible not to love.
I know. So I had to follow them. I made it out to PNC for like the last real game at PNC where he was going to still be on the Phillies. And I mean, they're just a blast to watch in general, especially when you have Bryce Harper and just a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent on that team.
They're so fun. They're so fun. And that's why it's so hard watching them right now because they're not fun to watch.
Yeah, typically Philadelphia teams are fun as is. So
yes,
at least I've noticed that. You've got Gritty. I mean, who can compete with Gritty at this point?
I mean, 100%.
So let's take a quick break to just pay some bills and we will dig deeper into this upcoming series against the White Sox. So we'll be right back. And we are back. So welcome back. Again, I'm Chrystal O'Keefe and I have Kevin Seamus here to talk about all things Phillies. So Kevin, how do you feel about kind of going into this series with the White Sox?
I wanted this Red series to be a nice little battery charger because the Reds are supposed to be bad. They are.
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
They just shellacked us yesterday. And so, we'll see how Noel pitches today, but there's corners that are going around. We're getting over the hard patch, and I think that they're getting more into we're going to have Wheeler in the first game, which is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the White Sox are fun. They have an interesting team. Louis Robert is so good and so talented. And one of those guys that's just so fun to watch and is so good.
Yeah. Ideally, Yoan Moncada will also be back for the series, and he has started off red hot.
One of my just longtime favorite players, Yoan Moncada. I always had him in fantasy. I used to keep him as like a little safety net. Just a good player. Yeah. So I feel pretty okay. I feel like we're turning a corner, and that it's going to be a good series, and I think that we're going to play competitively, which would be a nice change of pace. Because we're out of like half of these games every game. It's terrible.
Yeah. We're having some interesting kind of pitching. I don't even want to call them issues because it seems like they round themselves out. But Lance Lynn has shown a little bit of just struggle coming in. I know that you'll go against Lance. Yeah. And then Lucas Giolito had an incredible start the last time he played, which we were really concerned about him. Like Lucas is kind of always our main concern after he had this incredible 2020 series. And then 2021, 2022, it was like, okay, he's back to worst pitcher in baseball, Lucas.
Yeah, because he has that like top prospect shine. He was part of that huge deal for Washington to even give him up. Mm-hmm. It's just, he's always been such a weird question mark because he was so good that one year. And you always think that's going to be there, that like you can fall back on that. And especially like when you look at fantasy players, like you always think where he has that peak, he can repeat that peak. Mm-hmm. And maybe if I get him for cheap, it would be wonderful. And that's how Lance Lynn destroys every league.
Yeah.
Because Lance Lynn will go very cheaply in most leagues, and then he'll be one of the best pitchers. And so like, and especially when you see how Lance Lynn pitched in the World Baseball Classic, and like he has that stuff, and he has that extra gear that's so good.
Yeah, I've been watching him since high school.
That's
We
wild.
actually grew up in the same state.
That's cool.
So I saw his, there's national championship, his state championship win in person when he was a senior. So I won't disclose his age. I'll let you guys Google that, but we're the same age. But yeah, like he's always been really good, but there's that whole age factor of, well, is he going to start regressing?
Yeah, especially the way he pitches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the gas type of thing. And yeah, but some guys figure it out. He's a very good pitcher. So I think he will as one of those guys because he keeps going against what I think is going to happen with his career. Like every time that I think I haven't figured out, like when he was the previous teams, I'm like, I know what he is. And then he does way better than my expectations.
Yeah.
Which is why I always underestimated him, and he's always come out ahead.
That's why I love him so much. You don't know what you're going to get with Lance Lynn day to day. But it's
one guy I'm so happy to be dodging is Cease.
Oh, yes.
He is so good, but enigmatic in such a wild way that must be so interesting to watch on like a start-to-start basis.
Yeah, he's a blast. I am so happy we have him.
Yeah. Like looking at his stats last year before this year, I was just blown away just because he just dodged my radar going into last season.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just those numbers were out of this world, and just like he must be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and he was just points behind Verlander for Cy Young.
Yeah.
So going up against that is pretty impressive. He easily could have had it too.
Yeah. Whatever those Cy Young voters decide is what it is.
Yeah. So let's see. What are your kind of keys for the Phillies to take this series? Because again, you're not going up Cease. You're going up against some kind of pitchers that who knows what they're going to do day to day.
It's the continued evolution of Nick Castellanos. I mean, that is like the biggest key to how this season has started. He became like this trickster god in the last couple of weeks. Like he's doing like as each button goes from his shirt, the more goofy and weird he becomes, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Especially since, I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, last year wasn't fun with Nick Castellanos. It felt like it was an automatic out every time he came up. He just forgot what walks were. It was everything I was worried about when we traded for him. But like so far, we're 15 games in the season. He even with the postseason run, like it was a much better player than he was for most of the season last year. So like I'm changing my tune. I want to keep seeing it. He still doesn't have any power, which is a huge problem. And like, that's something we need to look at. And we need to keep watching and hoping it's going to keep happening because without Hoskins and without Harper, there is a power just emptiness. And so that's the thing that you have to keep watching in this. I don't know if this series is the series that we're going to be finding it.
Mm-hmm. So what is your odds on bringing that meme back? And that's a 4-0 ball game. Like, do we have that? Do you think that might come back this series? Are we like 30%, 50%? Where are we at with the meme for dear old Nick?
I mean, hopefully, Ruben Amaro doesn't say anything racist and then have to, quit on air.
Yeah.
Really change everything around for Castellanos to go deep to far left field. But I mean, I feel good. I'm going to say 60%.
Okay, that is good. So yeah, he's. You would probably say Nick is maybe the biggest threat, or do you have another person on the team that might be more of a threat to the White Sox right now?
I mean, like no one on the Bohm and Alec Bohm is like the guy to really watch, especially just the way that he's been playing and he's been like evolving as a player, and especially with the power gap. He's playing first now a lot more. He's changing as a hitter. He's the one that you have to watch, and he's the one that I want to see hit more.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So kind of breaking from the Phillies, I've always asked people, I just want to know how people feel about these rule changes as we're still getting used to them.
I mean, I'm pretty Twitter baseball guy when I say I don't mind the length of games. I've never cared about the length of games. I like having baseball on and doing other things, checking in, going back, switching over from game to game. I've got T-Mobile this year, so I have MLB TV. It's wonderful. I go switch everywhere around. But I honestly, with the beer thing, I think it will. I don't know how long it's going to stay. I think this might be a blip in the radar. I'm hoping it is. Because it's who are they trying to attract is really the question. They already have most of us, and like we want it long. But that being said, that aside, stealing bases is cool.
Yes.
And I like it. I like that people are trying it. I like people that are going outside the box. I love that. The shift, it feels weird. It still feels weird. Like it's like saying you can't go somewhere on a baseball field is still weird to me. Like it's like it goes oddly against everything I know about the game. But stealing bases, super cool. Want to keep it going. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, losing that aspect of the game has been a bummer for the past like 15 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was cool when guys stole like 100 bases. Like, it's so hard to imagine somebody stealing 100 bases in a season to me. And Ricky Henderson used to do it on the regular. Like it was nothing. Rock, I mean, come on. These guys stole bases all day. That must have been so much fun. I want to see that happen.
I watch my son. He's almost 13. He's playing little league, baseball right now, and that's all they do. They just steal bases all day.
If any ball goes past, if the catcher drops the ball, they're taking off. I used to drop the ball on purpose as a catcher because I wanted to catch guys trying to steal. It's fun.
He will taunt the pitcher. Like he's so good at just taunting that pitcher. And you'll see him, like yesterday he walked and he got home within, I think, 2 batters because he just constantly will steal. And he's very fast. Like he's very good at it. Yeah. But he will sit there and he'll just get like the biggest lead he can from first. And then the second that ball gets thrown by that pitcher, he is on second. Awesome. And he'll just do that constantly. And I think it's hilarious because, these are 13-year-old boys, like it's taunting their opposing team and stealing as many bases as they can. So, yeah, it is fun. I totally agree.
It's cool.
Although I'm personally in favor of the shift because that means Yasmani Grandal is more likely to get
it. It does make him so much better. It makes so many guys so much better. It opens up the field for like Matt Olson and for like it's just that's interesting and I think that's good. But it also, man, there's so many jokes in Philadelphia about how Ryan Howard would have hit 400. And it's like and like I remember all of those singles, like just these huge like. Because we didn't have exit velocity at the time, or we didn't know what it was. But we're talking like 109 mile per hour, like slams that would just be eaten up by a second baseman that's in deep right field. And it's just like, it's very frustrating. So like, it's nice that that's gone, but also it feels weird restricting players.
Yeah.
But like there is the workaround, which is, I think is interesting. I think it's fine. Like, of course they're going to find workarounds. That's what baseball's about.
Yeah. I was already used to the pitch clock personally because I do watch a lot of minor league baseball down here. Yeah. We've got a minor league team that, feeds to the Pirates.
Yeah.
So I was already used to that. I was used to most of these rule changes, but
and they're going to figure out
a baseball game though.
Yeah. And it's really changing it for a lot of people, but, and it's the finessing of the umps that really needs to be worked out. And like, the Cody Bellinger thing is like everyone's like number one target. because Cody Bellinger was getting a standing ovation from the Dodgers because he came back and he gave him a pitch clock violation. It's like, that's not the point of the rule. And like everyone knows that.
Well,
like,
they had to get special permission from the league for Andrew McCutchen on
that's wild.
Yeah, they had to, because they're like, look, he's going to get this ovation. We're not going to be able to control it. He still gets standing ovations every single time he would visit after 9 years away. Like, it felt like, he could be gone for 20 years and he was still going to get a standing ovation from Pittsburgh. So they actually had to call the league and say, hey, this is going to happen. Do not give him a violation.
That's
wild. It's wild.
It's just like there's common sense to this, and like we all feel like we could,
But then you've got the Pete Alonsos of the world who like hustle out there as fast as they can, to get up to bat. So it's just it's a funny thing to kind of watch what each player does,
and how that affects them, and like how it affects even like the walk-up music. It's weird. It's weird. Like, so I went to the Phillies on Monday, and the backup catcher, Garrett Stubbs, played. And he, of course, comes out to Frank Sinatra. and it's so, like, it's so quick. It doesn't even get to the point. It's supposed to be That's Life. It's supposed to, like, hit That's Life when he's walking up there. It doesn't even get there because it's so cut off. It's also really weird that Garrett Stubbs comes out to Frank Sinatra's That's Life. But that's a whole other conversation. Good for Garrett Stubbs. Pick your song.
Yeah, they need to just learn to kind of fast forward it, like bump it 15 seconds so they can.
It's like it's just finessing. It's the umps like figuring out not to be, blowhards, that kind of thing. and it's just going to take time. And like that's what spring training was for. And so like when everyone was annoyed during spring training, that made sense. Of course, they were going to get annoyed by it. It's a new rule change.
Yeah.
But like the Atlantic League was like fine with it. It all worked out like pretty much for all the rules the Atlantic League tried and that we're using. And so, we'll deal with it. Yeah,
I do think it was odd though that they didn't adhere to those rules for the World Baseball Classic. So you've got spring training where you're doing all these new rules. You've got World Baseball Classic where it's just like free for all, do what you want. Yeah. And then you immediately have to go right back into end of spring training, beginning of the season with these rules.
I mean, that's the whole thing with like trying to do world stuff. Like FIBA basketball has different lanes and like different 3-point lines. And so like going back and forth was probably weird for most of the players. And it was especially since half of us are watching spring training and trying to get used to these rules and are getting annoyed by the pitch clock violations, the automatic strikeouts, and all that stuff. And then we're watching these amazing games where none of that's a thing. And it's just like, it's probably been, MLB has probably been like pulling their hair out, like having to deal with it, to be honest, because it's just arguments they don't want to have. But the World Baseball Classic was so successful. So much fun.
Yeah, well, I was even worried about Dylan Cease in spring training because he looked so bad with the pitch clock. And then he came out and he was obviously perfectly fine. But hopefully I hope they're just adjusting, especially when they're a couple starts in now.
For sure.
So looking overall with MLB, what are kind of your thoughts for the season? Like, who do you see going all the way, or who is kind of your underdog sleeper agent this season? And it could be any division.
Well, the Braves are like terrifying. As a fan of an NL East team, the Braves look monstrous.
Yeah,
Ronald Acuna looks unbelievable. Matt Olson doesn't have the shift and is hitting like 390. It's scary. So I'm straight terrified of the Braves. In the AL, I have a couple like little sleepers. I love the Rangers. I mean, the Corey Seager thing is a bummer, and like that sucks. But I really like. They put so much money into that rotation. I'm betting on DeGrom on multiple fantasy leagues because
he's been good. He's back to like peak DeGrom right now.
Yeah, so like I have a whole thing where I don't pick Mets in fantasy because it's my fantasy that the Mets don't exist. So I don't put players on my fantasy team because I can't root for them to be good. So I've never looked at DeGrom. So this year I looked at DeGrom and he's really good.
He's great.
Future. So I bet on him in a bunch of leagues just to be regular DeGrom. So I like the Rangers a bunch. I love the Mariners. It's impossible not to enjoy watching the Mariners play baseball.
They're a fun team.
Like, oh my God. Julio Rodriguez is just so fun. Jared Kelenic is like my baby boy. I love him so much. I have so much faith in him. I've drafted him the last 2 years. It was a bummer, but you got to stick with those guys. Like Buxton, I always stick with that guy. Lewis Robert, I always stick with those guys. Mm-hmm. You have to. If you believe in them, you got to stay with them. And so, yeah, it's just so like those two teams. I also really like the Diamondbacks. I think
they've had a surprising resurgence.
Yeah, and like I'm big into Corbin Carroll because stealing bases once again is fun. But yeah, that's my big picture. Like just the fun teams that I keep a look. I've been watching a lot more games of, especially since 9:40, 10 o'clock. My game's over, so I can just switch over to the other games. So yeah.
Who do you think is going to make it? Who do you think is going to be the World Series teams this year?
My heart, of course, says it's going to be Phillies Mariners.
Okay. Oh, that would be a good one.
I also I love the Rays a lot. I mean, the Rays look unbelievable. I bet I was super into the Rays going into the season because I don't know why anybody wouldn't be. Like the Rays are smarter than everyone else. It's impossible to ignore their results. So like the Rays Braves kind of seems like what it would be. Braves Yankees if it was 1997, 1998, but yeah. Rays and Braves are the ones that I feel are in the driver's seat 15 games into the season with 147 to go.
No, that makes total sense. I could see that one too. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Please, this is your time to plug yourself. Where do we find you?
Sure. I mean, I'm, on the Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me at Kevin_Seamus, SEAMUS. I also write blogs I've been watching every 1993 Phillies game on YouTube and blogging about every single one, going into the context of stuff, going into how the game was played, how these players were playing at the time, how they then went through their career. So like one article that I really liked is I went into like the fire sale of the San Diego Padres in 93 and how it literally affects the next 7 World Series. And it's like, there's a lot of interesting stuff when you actually get to look back and see these games being played and seeing and knowing the future, which is cool. Yeah,
that's such a cool little project.
Yeah. And you can check that out at Blogspot at 93 Phils or Loud Phillies Guy on Instagram.
Beautiful. Again, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on. Best of luck to you in this series. And I will hope for a very speedy recovery. Of course, for our dear Bryce Harper, because again, I love him. I love him too much anyway. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome talking with you. I mean, I wish the best for the White Sox. Fun fact, the 1993 White Sox were very close to playing the 1993 Phillies in the World Series.
We've got the 1993 Western Division champs.
I got my 1993 Phillies NL championship shirt on. It was so
perfect. This was fate.
Forever,
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you. Good luck, Phils.
Have a good one.